Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, EMCC. Paul Sanbar believes that purposeful play positively impacts performance, personally and professionally. With this focus, he's dedicated himself to the field of self-development and to effecting change through play, storytelling, and powerful conversations. Initially as a psychotherapist, Paul is now an ICF accredited master certified coach, an EMCC accredited coach supervisor, and the creator of the hands-on thinking coach training and liminal spaces framework, utilizing Lego serious play methods. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to the 100 Master Coaches show. This is Coach Mal, and today my special guest, all the way from Los Angeles, California, is none other than Paul Sanbar. Let's give him a big round of applause. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you so much, Mel. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah, I remember the time when we caught up a little bit and you told me obviously some stories about yourself and how you're taking this wonderful thing that we've done as a child or children growing up and played along the way. So obviously we're gonna touch base on that in a moment.
Looking forward to it.
So the first question, as always, is tell us a little bit about Paul.
Well, Mel, we are going to get into a bit of how I used Lego in coaching and in facilitation and so I work as a coach supervisor. Yeah. And of course, I would be off brand if I didn't use Lego to tell you a little bit about myself. So all right,
here we go.
I built an artifact.
Oh, look at that.
It's right here. And so I'll take just a minute or so to tell you a bit about myself. So
please,
starting at the bottom here, what you notice are these two symmetrical walls, and that represents my past, where I come from. And so I got to be honest, a lot of my past from quite a long time ago wasn't all that great. There was a lot of anger that I had, and a lot of sadness that kind of sat up on top of that anger, and then maybe some anxiety that sat up on top of that. But it's part of me. Yeah. It's actually part that I denied as a young person a long time ago. But then what I actually did is I started to make it work for me. So what you'll notice is the younger Paul under here, and he's holding a microphone. Because I took all of that energy, all of those emotions and all of that, and I put it into words. And the first thing I did was, as a young adult, after going to college and working and finding my way, was to actually become a performance poet. And I performed around the world, didn't make quite a good living at it. There's not a lot of money in performance poetry, big surprise. But what it did teach me, it taught me how to be intentional with my words. It taught me how to stand in front of big audiences and sit with the discomfort that comes with that. But it also taught me just how important it was to stand in my values and in my beliefs, because that's what I shared a lot of. Yeah. So I built upon top of that. And so this next layer, and that's me now, right? And actually where I am is this guy right here. And so I'll show you, I've got this big idea that I'm holding out, shining off into the world. Yeah. But you'll notice I'm off to the side. This isn't really about me. Who I am is a coach. Every assessment I've taken basically says, don't try to do anything else. And so this is me. And if you'll notice this flower here. Yeah. My thing. And my thing is helping other people, and this is a client of any kind, find their thing, look out the window of their life and understand what they want. And what they want might be this thing right here, all of these ideas and these wonderful pieces of joy. And it may not. It's not my journey. This is their journey. But this only got to be built off of this. So this, my background, my experiences, who I am, it informs so much of of how I work. What I didn't share is that, in that first layer, I left the business world. I became a psychotherapist. It was a great experience, a very rewarding experience, but I realized it was a bit of an overcorrection. And after about 7 or 8 years, I moved back into the business world, and of course, between psychology and business is a lot of the work that we do. Add a bit of leadership and organizational behavior, and what we have is the work that I do and that I'm passionate about. And of course, I happen to bring some toys along the way every once in a while. It makes it a little bit easier to tell the story about myself.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I'll give you a big round of applause for that. Thank you for sharing that. As I said, this is the first time we're featuring Lego in the 100 Master Coaches show, and it just tells so much of that story, isn't it? It kind of made it so, on one side, very personal, and then on the other side, even when you're talking through the starting bits, which was, as you say, the foundations of who you are or who you were, it just made it easy for, I think, anyone to be able to share that past and still be okay to kind of roll with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, one, you were able to understand just by seeing the artifact that I created that there was more to the story, right? So first and foremost, yes, I honor my past and my truth. I feel very comfortable being able to share it with or without Lego. But I also know that a lot of the people that I work with maybe aren't as inclined to share so easily their truth, especially in front of strangers or out into a podcast. Yeah. And so one of the interesting things that happens when you build your thoughts and your feelings and you talk about them is that you're not quite as associated into them as much because you're talking about it instead of I. And so we know in some of the work we do with clients, when we might ask a question about them in third person, they may be able to share differently because they can talk about it, the situation, as if they were looking at it, and they can see it from different perspectives. And so yes, it's one way. It's my truth. It's there. It's not going away. But I also know I've built upon it, and I can share it and show it and feel good about it. But also you can see it and know that, well, there's more to the build.
There is always more to everything. Oh, that's so much more. And I'd like to begin that route with your story on the life before coaching. You talked a little bit about being a psychotherapist. I'm just wondering whether that was your initial step into the world, into corporate world, or was there something else? So share with us, Paul.
Yeah, for sure. So I jokingly refer to this story as a fortunate series of overcorrections. And it's the title of the book that I'm forever not writing. But it's also really holds very true for me. So initially, I went to school to become an architect. I wanted to build things, right? You can see I'm still building things, but we'll come back to that. So, I wanted to build things, but I also realized that it just wasn't quite the right fit. And so I quickly in university went to switch from architecture to business. My dad was an accountant, and you want to grow up to be a lot like one parent or somebody, and I looked up to him, and so I put on that figurative suit and went to work. But I realized very early on that I couldn't bring my whole self to work. This was getting close to 30 years ago, quite honestly, back then, I now know I was just entirely too altruistic. I wanted to change the world. As much as I liked making money, I wanted to make a difference. And so the next overcorrection I made was to become a psychotherapist. I left business. I said, I'm going to work on studying the human condition. I'm going to help people in this way. And so much of the work that I do now is informed by my background as a psychotherapist. But I also knew that it was yet another overcorrection, a bit too far away from the work that I do now, which is leadership, more positive psychology focused, right? Coaching being under that umbrella.
Yep.
Really, what it came down to is that I was trying to figure myself out. I was trying to heal myself.
Mm.
And as a therapist, you work off the medical model. I have nothing against any sort of work as in therapy. I still see a therapist. I have many colleagues that are therapists. And I'm also aware that the medical model sees things as broken. And so if you're always looking for holes in the crack and the gaps, that's all you'll see.
Yeah, it's always there.
It served me to look at the whole, to see it as not broken, but just wanting to evolve. And so when I changed that way of looking at my situation, I started to grow and evolve, and I still had to do a lot of work on myself. But I realized how great it was for other people to be able to see that perspective shift, especially people that look like us. And I'm just talking about guys. When I talk to other guys and men, when I was a therapist and I said what I do, I would feel energy pull away from me. But when I switched the term from, well, I'm a therapist to I'm a coach, and then, well, what's that? Well, I was like, well, did you play any sports or a musical instrument, when you were younger? Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of like that, but there's some differences. But, a coach is there to be there with you and take that journey with you. And just by that change, that shift of word, I started getting a lot more clients that look like us. They were much more willing to talk about themselves. I'm not talking about stuff they needed to go to therapy with.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about how they wanted to develop as a human being. And so all of that work, it informed how I showed up, who I became as a coach, and it still informs how I work with my passion now. I just am no longer a therapist anymore, and that's a good thing. I'm still overcorrecting a little bit here and there, but as you evolve, those overcorrections get smaller and smaller, and you just kind of, well, for me, I found what that flower on top of my head is, and that's, for me, that's my thing, and I just like helping other people find whatever that flower is on top of their head might be.
I'm curious about the flower now. Is there an insight with that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, well, sure. So that flower represents a value that is not going to come at any surprise, and that's the value of play. But that wasn't always the value that was leading me. There was a time years ago that I thought that what I really loved was creativity, was creating things. And I tried it, and a lot of the work that I did when I left psychotherapy and became a coach was working with other creatives and helping them to step into their creative wisdom, but it wasn't quite the right fit. And when we think about values, and sometimes one value might be competing with another value, and we have that feeling in the pit of our stomach, and that's just those two values that we have just kind of rubbing up against each other. Well, I took a long look at what it was, and what I realized that I wasn't trying to be creative. I wasn't trying to help people become artists. I was trying to show people what it was like to step into a sense of awe and wonder of what it was like to be a child. Yes, the world had rules, but also we created our own rules to fit with how we wanted to show up in the world. When we played a game and it ended, we changed the rules to keep playing the game. And so for me, that pink flower represents the value that's always stuck in my head around purposeful play and around how that positively impacts performance professionally and personally.
Thank you. It's a beautiful metaphor that you used and shared that bit of yourself, and allowing that to remind you is this reminder, that pink, right? And it allows you to go there. It gives you like permission to go there and play. Because as adults, sometimes we kind of force fit play into our daily routine. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now it's time for gym.
Now it's time to,
Yeah, this is the time where I'm going out there and run. So this is my play, and that's all the play I'm going to have. So it just kind of showed me that you chose to give yourself this permission every single day to go out there and just explore this world.
Yeah. I mean, we're curious people, right? We do this because we're just fascinated by, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm fascinated by everything. I have to work very hard to make sure that I stay focused on only 7 things at a time. Right? I'm always closing tabs in my computer. But it's also a sense of that's where growth is. But flowers are delicate. You can't hold it. You can't shake it around. You have to tend to it. And so it's also something that I make sure that if I'm getting too serious, it's about laughing at myself as well, because it's important, but also it's easy to get a little too serious every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm reminded by what the Joker said, right?
I was picturing the same thing.
So, Paul, this beautiful journey, psychotherapist and becoming a coach. Let's talk about the journey right now. How did that happen, right? From that correction, as you say, to that place of being a coach.
Mel, for you and anybody listening, I only know one way of showing up, and that's just with my truth, right? So to be very honest, I was a therapist. I was okay with it. I can't say that I was loving it. And then my mom got sick, and I had to make the decision to either find somebody to take care of her or to take care of her myself. And I also knew that, unfortunately, with the illness, she might not be around for a long time. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to set work aside for a moment and focus and be her primary caregiver. It wasn't easy. My mom, there was a reason why I went and got a master's in psychology. 2 reasons. We'll say 3. Mom, dad, and me, right? And so it wasn't easy, but I knew I was making the right decision.
Yeah.
After she passed, and I kind of was looking at, well, okay, I did what I wanted to do. What do I want to do next? I felt complete with the world of, psychotherapy purely. And it's funny, when I was finishing my master's program 7-8 years prior to that, I remember telling the dean of my school, well, I'm kind of interested in being a coach. And he looked at me like my hair was on fire. He's like, you just did a 2-year master's of psychology program. You could have just taken a 3-hour weekend class for that. I said, well, but I think this field is something that's going to develop over time. And he looked at me like a foolish person. So started putting the things back together after mom passed, and I started looking into coaching programs, and I just, any good school will give you a little, free taster or whatever to learn about the program and the teachers, and I was just hooked. I had spent, to be honest, a couple years with my mom dealing with a very, very big, challenging problem, and it felt really good to just look at the wholeness of who I was rather than the broken parts of me that I needed to put back together. And so it sat so well internally with me. I dove in, and it's been nonstop since.
Wow,
it's a good decision.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that part of the story in your life. And, everyone listening will kind of know whether you're on your journey or whether you've gone through your journey or still on the journey. We've all come from that bit of challenge, that bit in our life where we had to go through. In some ways, it was intentional for our growth. It's intentional for us to get to that place. Mine was me leaving country, coming to a new land, tried to get back into the area I was in, which was marketing. Could not get back, down and out almost. And then that's where coaching kind of helped me resurrect, if I can say. The person that was there and just needed that, as you were saying, needed that bit to look at it in a holistic sense versus saying, I'm out of a job. No one's going to accept me in Australia based on this. So I just resonate with what you're saying. And every coach stepping in or already in has that story. And I'm just so fascinated by it all the time.
Yeah. Regardless of the story of how bad, whatever word you want to give to it, we all have that story. And while it comes with us into every coaching session, we need to know when that part of us is potentially wanting to give advice or take over, or maybe even having, in psychology, we would call it countertransference, right? Like starting to feel like we need to fix them or whatever, because that's our own unfinished business or that's our own work. It's so important, one, to do the work on yourself as a coach.
Yes.
But also to know that it's never gone. It's always there with you. So tap into it. When a client brings their humanness, allow yourself to tap into your own humanness, because that's what they are probably needing at that moment, rather than a solution. Is they're probably just needing a human to sit next to them and just say, what are you needing right now? I think I might have gone 2 questions ahead, Mel, but this is it's
so good. And I'm going to turn that around to you, Paul, and ask you, what do you feel it's time to share a little bit about right now?
Oh, boy. I think right now, I was on a panel for my local ICF chapter. We were sharing, and it was a panel of other master certified coaches, and the room there was a good amount of people asking us questions, and it was so interesting. There were 4 of us, and they asked the question, well, how did you get from where you were to where you are? And what was so interesting is that the range of stories of the 4 people was so disparate. It was like, one person was like, well, I did it like this, and you did it, and I did it that way, and I focused on this. One person brought up the money conversation quite a bit, and was always, I was like, I kept focusing on this. I brought up a different thing, but then we all shared, and I said to the crowd, I said, notice the differences. There's no one way to do this.
Yeah.
But then I also said, do it the way that works best for you, and a little bit of what feels happy, what feels uncomfortable, because that's the part that's going to help you build and grow.
It's a good time to build and grow that bit into you stepping in for the very first time, I guess, when you were coming out as a coach. What was that difference for you?
Early on, that it's always, find your niche, and you'll market it and do this, and but also you just want clients. So somebody that is like, they go, well, I'm not, they don't say this overtly, right? But they're like, I'm not your niche. And you go, great, I'll take you on, right? I feel very good about the amount of times that I said yes, because I think that's how you get places, by saying yes with no, I mean, this is business. Everything is transactional when it comes down to it, but without any expectation of getting something in return. What I didn't do well initially was put boundaries around the yes. To say, yes, this from here to here is what I'm willing to do. Because as somebody who loves people and cares too much at times, I got really burnt out in a lot of different ways. And so I don't regret any of the yeses that I made, but my older self, I tell my younger self, just put some more boundaries around those yeses, to take care of yourself, to make sure that it was that you weren't burning out.
Yeah.
But man, to this day, even a few days ago, somebody reached out to me from something that I said yes to for free, like 4 years ago, something
Wow.
a little small. And they said, hey, we remember you from this. We'd like you to, come to our company and do this whole day thing. And so I was like, well, what was it that sparked you to reach out? And I was like, oh, well, you did this for somebody this amount of time, and they said that it was really great. And I knew that. And I was asking around, and that somebody told me to reach out to you. And I said, wow. Well, one, always ask, who should I thank for this referral? But
So
also
good.
know that, you gotta, I use the term social capital quite a bit. There's lots of forms of capital, right? Human
Mm,
capital, obviously, a lot of the work in HR. There's manufacturing, of course. There's fiscal capital. There's social capital is the only form of capital that nobody can own. It
mm.
exists between people.
Yeah, it's true.
And Mel, the only way to get more of it is to give it away. I gave away a lot early
Mm.
on, and man, I feel like I'm reaping the benefits of it every day now.
It's like that giving, it's better than receiving, right? And in a way, giving makes us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
It also makes us feel human. It is part of our DNA to give, isn't it? To another person, to another
Yeah.
relationship. And it is, I believe, very big part of that embodying what a coaching mindset is about.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I've interviewed, as you know, quite a few amazing master coaches, and they've said some similar stories like yours, right? Be faithful with what you're doing, be faithful with the
Yeah.
small, it will grow up into something. Today, with a lot more coaches,
Yeah.
today, with a whole thing about social media and
Yeah.
having your brand out there and your messaging to the right audience, la la la, it's all those things that we can do because there's just so much. How do you draw that boundary of how
Yeah.
much to do out there that you're
Mm.
still, keeping that I'm still sane. I'm still not doing more than that 7 things on that list.
Well, I hopefully this will be a good enough answer for that. As a as somebody that was curious about a lot of things, I was a generalist, right? I
Mm,
loved a lot of things, but I think early on allowed me to connect and build rapport with people because
mm,
no matter what you bring up, I'm like, I that's interesting. I may know a little about it. But I also realized that in order to become the coach that I am trying to become and becoming,
yeah.
that I really actually, pardon the pun, the Lego pun, but I needed to be willing to put all my bricks in one basket for a bit. And so what I did a few years ago, and it didn't feel good, but I really said, you know what? I'm going to make a brand, and I'm going to be known as, a coach that uses Lego serious play methods, and I'm gonna build a coach training that uses that methodology, and I'm
Mm,
gonna, go into my science lab with my psychology background and build a training that hopefully people may like. But what's going to also happen is I'm going to lose a lot of potential clients.
mm,
And I'm very much aware because I have been told, people, a potential sponsor, somebody will reach out and they're like, hey, we want to put you up for this potential contract and blah, blah, blah. I shared your LinkedIn. And then, I won't hear anything in a few weeks later, they're like, hey, they just didn't think you're the right
yeah,
coach. And it's because I've got a lot of Lego on my LinkedIn page.
yeah,
And it doesn't feel good at
yeah,
times, but I know I'm making the right decision because I can't be a coach for everybody.
yeah.
And it means that I've doing this has actually closed quite a few tabs on my browser, but that actually makes me, I think, a more focused professional, being willing to lose clients, being willing for clients to, even if I am a masterful coach in less than the ICF term, right? I'm not the coach for them because they don't think I am, and I have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
So for me, like to that question, it's being willing to put myself out there in a way that feels really good, even though I know I might be challenging the bottom line at times. I put myself out there with this training, but man, it feels really good to at least be trying. And I've got faith that if I do fall down and break a few bricks, I can put myself back together again.
Oh man, lots of puns you're throwing out there.
It's play, Mel. I mean, if
I
I
love
wasn't
it.
having fun, I mean, this isn't just
That's good.
the thing that I do. This is, I mean, I tell my coaching clients, I say, listen, if you choose me, we are going to work. It's going to be work,
Yeah,
but it should also be fun.
that's right.
Like, we're talking
That's
about what you want to change and who you want to become and what you want to develop for yourself. So if we're not having fun and we're not doing this right, so please let me know,
Yeah.
because our own personal or professional development should be fun, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully our clients are able to choose the majority of their developmental goals, right? So
Yeah, and we all have tools in our toolkit or tool bag, right? And some people have psychometric tools, profiling tools, what have you. And you've got your tools too. If I had a choice, Paul, if I was a client out there, I'll choose you, hands down, because I know it's not all going to be, why are you doing this? And I can't explain it. It's like, why? Because I want to do it. But when you introduce something like Lego, I mean, I'm obviously not in all sessions, but it just breaks it down, right? It just distills it to the core
right.
of who we are. And you know what? With play, you and I know that we give ourselves a chance to show up without feeling that vulnerable, And so
all the stories that we learned, the ones that parents and teachers and all those do this, do that, all that, we can take that. I mean, because it doesn't go away, but we can say, I'm going to set that aside for now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to when I got to, if I wanted to be Superman for the next few minutes, I could be Superman, right?
Yeah.
What would it feel like to be Superman? And what would you say, right? I mean, that's play. But truthfully, Mel, I'm biased, clearly, but I think all great coaching is play.
Oh, yeah.
We ask a client, right? We ask a client to suspend reality for a moment, make believe.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like that story? Let's make a new story. What's the origin story of that?
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, it's all play. And in my work, it is an art and a science, right? There's an art to the coaching around play and around purposeful play, but there's a lot of science too. I mean, part of the science is understanding that objects, as small kids, you're given objects to build and make and hold and kind of anchor in time, and adults do the same thing. And those objects have meaning, and we can talk about them and talk about how they give purpose to us, and talk about, it's just one of the wonderful forms of play that I like to use, in Lego form, but also in digital form. I love all sorts of playing with. The term that I use is hands-on visual thinking, right? Which for some clients, they don't want, but a lot of clients, in my mind, and maybe it's just because those are the ones coming to me now from all of my marketing, is that they're wanting to think in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And you put yourself through some rigor too, Paul. You have a title there, MCC, right? Like obviously every guest on this show.
Certified, Monster certified coach.
Yeah, Monster certified coach. I love that.
Munster, I am pretty cheesy. So Munster certified coach was one of the other ones.
Oh my gosh. Tell us about that exciting journey towards Monster certified coach.
Mel, I mean, I am really good at imagining judgment from upon high, from like some invisible, mystical,
Oh yeah.
all-knowing,
Oh yeah.
sentient thing. I remember, and talk about stories that stick with you. When whatever, a decade ago or so, when I got my PCC, this is when you did it live.
You
So
did it live. Oh my
this
gosh. That's scary.
you coached a master coach live, and another person listened to you.
Oh gosh.
And then you hang up. They're like, we'll call you back in 15 minutes. And then you just go sit and like chew all of your fingernails off, right? I remember I was working full time. I told my boss, I was like, I'm taking the morning off. If you don't see me in the afternoon, I've taken the afternoon off. If you see me in the afternoon, give me a high five, right?
That's good news.
Yeah. But I remember the coach, he said, hey, you passed. It was
Oh,
a little different, but we liked it. You passed.
oh, beautiful.
And all I took from that was it was a little different the way he said it. And I was like, maybe he feels bad, maybe what I'm saying about this is that
Mm,
as I started to get, I got my hours for the MCC. I mean, I
yeah,
passed the hours, a few years ago. To be honest, I made a commitment to get trained as a coach supervisor,
yeah,
and I'm accredited as a coach supervisor with the EMCC. And I decided to do that before my MCC. And so when I finished that and I was back on looking at the MCC, the story of that guy and that red blinking light of recording, I got to be honest, it was really tough. To be a masterful coach is to be present, to have no stories or in your head or even just near you, to just
yeah,
be a little cliche, but to be an empty vessel, right? To
yeah,
allow what happens in that space to resonate within and then reflect back or ask a very simple question and
yeah.
just to be there. But that flashing light and that guy's voice from years before
Wow.
were challenging.
Mm,
So for me, I just had to get a lot of reps, forget that light was even on.
yeah.
And also, I found a mentor coach that I used a reference. They were like a warm hug, but with a splash of cold water on your face, right? But I needed that warm hug because I knew
Yeah.
I said, listen, I'm going to be judging myself more than you will ever do.
Yeah.
So I need some warm hugs in this process. And that's what it's about, is knowing what you need.
Mm,
And so I found the right mentor coach that would help me. But then I just got a lot of reps. And that's what I'd tell all new coaches that have been around for a while, get reps, record yourself, because you're not going to want to hear it. And so the more you hear it, the less you'll want to throw up in your mouth when you hear yourself ask a question that you didn't need to ask. And then, of course, have fun with it. Not the end of the world.
so true, right? That whole, whatever that conditioning is, whatever that background of needing to conform, needing to
Oh,
show up like I've got it all together,
yeah.
to perform, in some ways even show off a little bit. This is me. I can do this to this client. And it's just so humbling to me. It's just so humbling when you're not needed. Your thoughts are not needed. Your comments are not needed.
Nope.
You're like, okay.
You're in the way. Get out of the way.
Exactly. It's like,
I
step
tell
aside.
the thing I share with newer coaches trying to figure out the perfect question. I share this constantly. I said the client will always answer the question in their head, not the one you asked. So just
Oh,
get over yourself. Because if you
so good.
figure out the
So
perfect
true.
question and then they don't answer it,
Answer
you know how
it.
annoyed you're going to be?
Yes, it's like, let's get back to that question that you did not answer.
It's so great I spent, you were talking for
Oh
5 minutes.
gosh.
I didn't hear anything you said because all I was doing was thinking about the question.
Question.
And then I thought
So
of it,
good.
and then I just kept thinking about it because I wanted to ask you. We've all done it.
Oh yes. Especially the recording when you listen to yourself, just like, I'm a bit of a, I do a bit of singing. So when I hear my voice again, it's like, please shut it, shoot him.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, you're right. We are our best critics. That there are bits of that actually helps us
Oh,
because it keeps us in that space of, even as a coach, right? It's like, know your role, know your space, know your
yeah.
place. And how important is that, right?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, my doubt, my
Mm,
insecurity was crippling for me as a young
yeah,
person.
yeah.
But it actually is partially what makes me a pretty good coach now is
Mm,
because I'm always assuming that what the client has to say is
mm.
probably better than what I have to say.
Wow.
So I call it my super doubt. I obviously I've got an ego. I think I can coach pretty good. So every other Thursday, right? But
Yeah.
but normally I'm like, what they're gonna say is probably way
Oh,
more
yeah.
important than what I'm gonna say right now. So
Yeah.
let me just shut up and listen.
Constant reminder. We can make it into a song as well, Paul.
I'll write a poem about it
Oh,
and have
yeah,
you
that's right.
perform it.
Poem. And then use Lego to express it.
There we go. Full circle moment.
Yeah, Paul, it's been a pleasure having you on this show and just listening in on all those gems that you're dropping in puns as well. New coaches come in all the time, every day, every single minute. Yes, it is. And my belief is we still need a lot more coaches, right? The
Yeah,
world needs that what you're saying, healing, restoration, whatever it is, that
now more than
wholeness.
ever, for sure.
Absolutely. So, what would be your thoughts to the new people coming in without giving them that fear factor?
You know, I think ask yourself,
Mm,
do you want to do coaching or do you want to be a coach? There's a difference.
wow.
I have no doubt that you have come across quite
Mm,
a few people. You're networking, you're out, and this isn't a binary thing, but they're like, oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I do coaching.
yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, yeah, you do coaching. Be a coach.
Mm,
It is a wonderful gift, but you
yeah,
have to give into it fully. That means doing the work on yourself, whatever that looks like. We do
yeah,
some of it in the coaching program, right?
yeah.
But that doesn't stop there.
It's true.
Who you are is how you coach. The client that is going to hook you into your old story is going to
Mm,
show up on your
oh
doorstep
yeah,
and it's going to mess with you. So do things like get coach supervision, whatever that looks like, if it's peer supervision, if it's just reflecting with a journal after a session, be a coach, step into it fully. That doesn't mean coach people everywhere without asking permission. Ask permission before you want to coach somebody,
yeah,
especially unless they've paid you for that hour. But
yeah.
really try to be a coach in everything that you do, and
Mm,
it will come back to you. And if
mm,
what you've heard me say right now doesn't resonate and you're like, I just want to do some coaching,
yeah.
that's okay. But you're going to have to do some other things as well.
Mm,
So that's fine. But if you really want to make this who you are and your profession, you need to really give into it and be a coach.
yeah. Amen to that. I truly believe that. It's part of my principles of a great coach. I've got 7, and the anchor
Yeah.
of that is be the coach. It is a choice. It is not to be assumed that it comes natural as well. You and I have to choose that and want to stay in that state as well,
It's
because
not
that,
easy.
yeah, it's not
Giving
easy.
advice and telling people or I mean, that feels good on the ego, right?
Every day over Starbucks, anytime. Yeah, you called me for Starbucks. I'm going to give you my 2 cents worth, you know? It's a pleasure having you, Paul. Thank you so much. Any last thoughts before we go, Paul?
Wow. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't encourage people to play,
Mm.
especially out in the real world.
Oh,
The
yeah.
more digitized we get, and listen, I love technology. I wrote my master's thesis on technology and relationships, 20 something
Oh,
years ago. I love
nice.
connecting with people on Zoom. And the more technologically connected we get in the world, the more we need analog connections,
Yeah,
whether
that's
that is
true.
with another human
Yeah.
or with a Lego brick or with nature.
Mm.
Connect and see what happens. See how you are
Mm.
anchored into the here and now, because our phones and everything is dinging on us to take us into the past or into the future.
Mm. Yeah.
Connect in the here and now, with other people,
Yeah.
with other things, and if you are interested in connecting with Lego, look me up.
That's right. Connect with Paul. Thank you so much once again, Paul. It's a
Cheers.
pleasure to
Thank you.
play with you today.
Yeah.
Digital, no doubt. We will make sure that the analog comes really soon, one day. Okay. This has been the 100 Master Coaches show today with Paul, myself, Mel. Hey, go out there intentionally and play.
Yeah.
All the best,
Did you say
guys.
Monster Coach?
Monster Coach checking out both of us. Bye for now. Catch ya.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.